Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today, I am going to be sharing with all of you guys my top 5 favorite high fantasy authors. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you will share with me your top 5 favorite high fantasy authors, because I would really love to hear your suggestions and who you guys like reading. Also, if you end up liking this list, hopefully you will give it a like and a subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and it would help me out a lot, and the channel out a lot, for me to continue giving you great content. Okay, so before we get into the actual list of authors, if you're not really sure what high fantasy means, I can go ahead and give you a quick introduction to that. Basically, a high fantasy is a story that is in its own fantasy world. It takes place in a completely different world and is not related to Earth in any way. Completely its own thing, and usually has magic of some kind or magical creatures or something like that. Some good examples of that would be like Lord of the Rings, the Dragonlance series, the Belgariad series. All of those would be considered high fantasy. If you want a little bit more details and a little bit more information about high fantasy or other types of fantasy like urban fantasy or low fantasy, I do have a blog post on that. I will link it down below for you. So hopefully that can provide you some clarity if you're still unsure. Now, let's get into the list of authors. My top number 1 favorite author for high fantasy is actually a duo of 2 authors. For you guys who have watched my channel for a long time now, you will probably already know who I'm going to say, and that is Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. They are an excellent duo. They have excellent series. I've read, I think, 3 or 4 of their different book series, and I love all of them. I've never been disappointed with a Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman book ever. They're really great authors. They have a lot of diversity on a lot of different series, and their writing style is superb. So I definitely recommend you reading at least something from Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman if you haven't already. They are excellent authors, and I really love all of their works. The next one is going to be my second favorite, and he only has 2 books, and that is Joshua Phillip Johnson. He actually just recently, I think in February, came out with his second book. So you're probably like, how can he be a favorite when there's only 2 books out? But I really, really, really love the 2 books that are out. His first book I already did a review on back, I believe it was 2021, called The Forever Sea. It was my favorite from that year. I absolutely love his writing style. I love the uniqueness of his story. And I've actually just finished reading the second book in that series that he's got, called The Endless Song, and a review will be coming out shortly. But anyway, so even though he only has 2 books and he is a very new author, I really love his story. I really love his writing style. I really hope he makes more books, because he has quickly become a top favorite of mine in high fantasy. He is excellent, and I definitely recommend you trying out The Forever Sea if you have not tried it out already. The third one in this list is Lisa Shearin. She really only has 1 high fantasy series, but that's the only series from her that I've read, though I do want to get into her other series. I just haven't had the chance. So in my mind, she's very much a high fantasy writer. It is the Rain Benares series, so if you have watched the first book, I do have a set of videos discussing that first book, which hopefully you guys have enjoyed. But yeah, I really like Lisa Shearin's just whole concept with that story. I've read her series multiple times, I think like maybe 4 times, and I'm excited that she's making some new books for it. So definitely love her as a writer in general, and see her as mostly a high fantasy author, just since that is my experience with her. So definitely recommend her series, the Rain Benares series, if you're looking for a new high fantasy series. She is really great, and I've heard really great things about her other series. I think it's called The Spy Files or something like that. And though that's not a high fantasy, it is, I've heard, really, really good, and I hope to be able to read it soon. And our fourth contender for the top 5 is Jim Butcher. Now, Jim Butcher is actually my very favorite author, probably of all time. But he is number 4 on this list because I mostly think of him as a urban fantasy author, just since he's got more books in his urban fantasy story than in his high fantasy series. But his high fantasy series is excellent. Really, really excellent. I've read it a couple times. It's so good. I do hope at some point to be able to share about content about it on this channel. He is an excellent writer with an excellent writing style, and his concepts are always super unique. His high fantasy series, the Codex Alera, is super interesting and unique, and I love it. So he's not totally, in my opinion, thinking of a high fantasy author, which is why he's lower down on this list, but he is an excellent author, and I definitely recommend checking out his high fantasy series. It's super good. And last but not least, number 5. Number 5 is Terry Goodkind, who does the Sword of Truth novels, and he's got a lot of them. The reason he is number 5 is because his books are so long. Like, I love the books, I love the characters, they're excellent, but they're dense books, and they are super long. Like, I think book number 2 was like almost 1,000 pages. It's huge, and the writing is tiny. So though I love him and I love his story, he is number 5 for me because of how long it takes to get through his books. And it's not like a set of books that you can just go one after another and read. You have to like mentally prepare yourself for these books because it's going to take you a long time to get through it. Especially if you're not somebody who has tons of time to read, it could take you months to get through one book. So his stories are amazing, and I definitely think you should check them out, but just be aware, they aren't ones that you can just plow through. He definitely has a very dense, distinct writing style. So there you go, my top 5 favorite high fantasy authors. There are plenty of other great high fantasy authors out there, but these ones are in my top 5. Again, I'd love to hear your top 5 authors. It would really be nice to maybe get some new suggestions of who to try. So if you have any that you'd like to share with me, I'd really appreciate it. And I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.